Hi everyone. Today I wanted to go over the new demo cluster functionality on the Cast AI platform. So if you wanted to explore Cast AI, see what the offering looks like, see what kind of optimization might be possible, but you don't want to onboard one of your existing clusters, or if you don't have a cluster that you have available to onboard, we now have a demo cluster built into the platform and a tour that you can use. So you can actually take a tour and do a walkthrough of the Cast AI platform, see what the different functionality are. You can see where the free tier is. So if we go ahead and drill into the Cast AI demo cluster, we can do a quick walkthrough of what's available here. So on this screen, you're going to see kind of the overview of the entire simulated cluster. You can see how many nodes there are. You can look at what's on demand versus fallback versus spot instances. Fallback being there wasn't enough spot capacity, so it got moved to on demand, but those are nodes that will get moved back to spot instances once they're available. You can see the size of the cluster. All of the data on this screen in a real live cluster would be exportable, so you could bring this into a Grafana or Prometheus environment if you wanted to, and be able to use that data in your local environment. Now, kind of one of the meat and potatoes pieces of Cast AI is when you onboard a new cluster, you'll get dropped into what we call our available savings report. So on this page, you can see on this simulated cluster, we expect a savings of 58.4% is an optimal configuration, assuming that we can use some spot instances. Now, if we don't use any spot instances, if we only use the same amount of spot instances that are available in the cluster currently, it would be 54.9%. So on a cluster like this, it would be $112,000 a month currently, and we could optimize it down to about $50,000 a month. This cluster is actually mimicked off of our averages as far as percentage of savings go. Typical cluster, we can save around 60% to 68% using some spot instances, and around 40 to 55% using just on-demand instances, depending on how the cluster is configured in the environment. Now, how we get to those savings is you can look at the configuration comparison. The current cluster configuration is on the left, and the optimized cluster configuration is on the right. Then you can look at what the comparisons look like over time. So all of this data is obviously simulated. However, this is the same type of data you would have access to if you onboarded a real live cluster. Everything above the green line over here is part of our free tier platform. So Cast AI, our goal here is anything that is read-only and just reporting is going to be part of our free tier. Our paid tier is going to be the automated remediation of problems. So in this case, currently we have automated remediation of node sizing, capacity management. We'll be moving into automated remediation of security and network best practices over the coming next quarter. So you can see here we do have the security report, we have the cost monitoring report. So let's drill into cost monitoring. So in this case, this is the entire overview of the cost monitoring of the cluster. So this is total cluster costs over the month of December. And when you see the yellow, that's fallback. That's when there was not enough spot capacity and we had to get on-demand capacity to fill in the gaps. But then that capacity was obviously phased away shortly after. And then light blue is on-demand, and the navy sort of black color is spot instances. So this is a breakdown of your whole cluster, what your nominal CPU cost is, and then what your daily cost for the cluster is. Then we can also drill into workloads. So you can see what each workload is costing you over the course of the time period. In this case, it's December 2022. We can drill into what the offering here is. So in this case, you can see what the on-demand versus fallback versus spot for this particular workload. So you can see on a specific workload basis what the cost performance is for that workload. We drill into namespaces. If you're running multiple namespaces, for instance, if you've got teams or products or projects that are broken into namespaces, you can track the namespace costs here, and that's all available in the demo platform. And lastly, cost comparison is not available in the demo cluster. In a real cluster, this would be an A/B comparison of before and after. So you can select an earlier time period and then a later time period and compare the two together to get an idea of how much difference Cast AI has actually made in the platform, or how much difference other changes you've made in the platform. For instance, if you tuned your requests and limits, you would be able to identify what impact that had on your cluster. Go down to the security report real quick. So in security reporting, we have best practices. This includes CIS benchmarks. We don't have any CIS benchmarks in the list here. However, best practices and CIS benchmarks are listed here. And then vulnerabilities, currently we're scanning all publicly available images that we found in the cluster for vulnerabilities and reporting on them here. And you can drill into what vulnerabilities are found, what the remediation is, what the patch versions are. Now we can move on to the autoscaler setup. So in this case, you can see all the different autoscaler configurations that are available. So this is previously part of our paid tier. This is currently part of our paid tier. However, in the demo environment here, you can click in and read through the descriptions. You can do the tour and get a really good idea of what different options you have available to you. Now in the node template section, we're gonna leave here. Now under the node template, this shows you, you can take a look at an existing node template. So node templates are an ability to create a specific configuration or sizing that you want a certain set of nodes to use. In this case, this is a GPU specific node configuration. So if you had a specific workload that was intended to run using GPUs, you can create a configuration here, add a node selector to your workloads, and schedule them on a GPU node. You could do this for other things if you had compute or storage intensive workloads. If you wanted everything in this group to be able to run on Spot, you could use Spot instances here as well. You can also select a subset of instance types using the constraints here. Okay. Lastly, node configurations here. This is additional configuration all around a broad scale. You can have multiple of them if needed. You can also have just the default configuration. Now, all the actions that happen, audit log is not in the demo cluster because we don't have any settings here. However, anything that happens in the Cast AI cluster, you'll see in the audit log. And then also rebalancing, you'd be able to see here. I think we can generate a plan. So in this case, you're looking at what the existing cluster cost is versus what the resulting cluster cost is. Again, we can't actually run it because this is a demo. However, this is how rebalance would work in a production environment. We would create the new nodes first. It's a blue-green deployment. Then we would migrate the workloads from the existing nodes over to the new nodes. And then we would tear down the old nodes. And this is a optimization in real time. This takes about 5 to 10 minutes typically, depending on the size of the cluster. And it will optimize the cluster down to 41,830 within a few minutes. It gets you to that optimized state. And then the autoscaler takes over and runs from there. I hope this has been helpful. I hope people can log in and create an account and check out Cast AI. If you don't have a cluster to connect, you can use the demo cluster, and that'll give you a good idea of what's available on the platform and how it might be able to help your organization to do tuning and capacity management. All right, thanks everyone.